Hello everyone, welcome back to the Japan Archives. I was sick, which is why we've not been here. My apologies, I just could not talk. I was very under the weather, but we're back now. And it's episode 99, Heather. Next will be the official, well, we've had more than 100 episodes, but numerically we will be on episode 100.
Oh my gosh.
In the next episode, which is really cool.
Oh, we need to have a party.
We're going to have a big old party. If you want, please stick around at the end of the episode. We're going to talk about some plans for the podcast this coming year, as well as some other projects I'm working on for anyone who's interested, but we'll put that at the end if you are intrigued. But very quickly, as usual, how are you doing today, Heather, before we jump into the episode?
Instead of talking about the weather, full disclosure, I'm a little under the weather, although I have my voice.
Oh, no.
So I'm here, but if I'm a little bit less enthusiastic, please be aware.
You'll be fine, I'm sure. So today I've picked a story. I picked a story from the Konjaku Monogatari. We have picked stories from here several times in the past. I do think we need an episode about probably the person behind the book, if there is one, or the collection of people. But the story today, the title, at least in the book I have, it's a very long title for this particular story. It's called How Men of Kaga Province, who went to an island where a snake was warring with a centipede, aided the snake and settled in the island.
Huh.
Really rolls off the tongue, the title today.
Super catchy.
Without much further ado, I guess I'll read the story for us today.
Wait, how are you?
Oh, how am I? I mean, I'm not sick now. I am doing really good. I'm being very motivated, and I've worked on a lot of projects while I was sick, actually. I couldn't talk, but I could work on other stuff, and that's kind of what I was going to mention at the end of the episode. If anyone's interested in our other projects we're also working on in the background. So, let us begin. Mukashi. There lived in the district of Kaga Province 7 men of humble birth who always went to sea as a group. They liked fishing and earned their living by it. For many years, all 7 rowed out together in the same boat. Even though they went to fish, all were armed with bows and arrows and other weapons. They had rowed far out until the shore they had left behind could no longer be seen, when suddenly, without warning, fierce winds sprang up and carried them out towards the open sea. Borne along on the water, powerless to resist, they shipped their oars and entrusted themselves to the winds, bewailing their lot and expecting at every moment to die. Far ahead they caught sight of a large island, alone in the midst of the sea. Yes, they thought, an island, and if somehow they could manage to reach it, they might save themselves, if only for a time. Their ship was drawn to the island as though someone or something was pulling it in. For the present our lives are spared, they thought, and in their joy they tumbled pell-mell out of the boat. They dragged it up onto the shore and examined the island. There were streams, and it seemed likely that there would be fruit trees. Just as they were about to go in search of something to eat, a handsome young man, apparently in his 20s, strode into view. Here was a pleasant surprise. So the island's inhabited, thought the fisherman. The young man came up to them and said, "Don't you know that I have brought you here as my guests?" "No," said the fisherman. "We went out to fish, but without warning we were blown out to sea. To our great joy, we caught sight of this island and landed here. The wind that blew you to sea was my doing," said the man. At this they realized that he was no ordinary human being. "You must be exhausted," said the man. He turned and cried loudly, "Bring the things here." There was a sound of many feet approaching, and then 2 long chests were brought in, as well as a jar of sake in plenty. When the chests were opened, the fishermen saw that they were full of delicacies. Everything was taken out and given to them, and they fell to heartily, for they were famished after their long day, and they drank their fill. What was left over was returned to the chests untouched, to provide for the following day, and the chests were laid aside. The bearers of the chests all departed. Afterwards the hosts came up to them and said, "There is a reason why I have brought you here. Out to sea beyond this island is yet another island. Its master constantly comes here and wars against me. He wants to kill me and take possession of this island. I contrive each time to beat him back, and thus it has been for years. Tomorrow he will come again, and that day will decide which of us will live and which will die. I have asked you here with the wish that you might aid me." The fisherman said, "How large an army will he come with? How many ships do they have? We may not be able to withstand them, But since you have brought us here in this way, we will do your bidding even if it costs us our lives." The man showed great joy at their reply. "The enemy who is about to come is not of human shape, nor am I. Tomorrow you will see. On the previous occasions when he was tried to evade this island, I have come down on him from this higher ground. Until now I have never let my enemy come up to the foot of this waterfall. Always I have driven him back at the water's edge. Tomorrow, however, I will be relying strongly on you, and therefore I will let him make his way onto dry land. As he climbs, he will gain strength. Take encouragement and advance. Leave the fighting to me for a time. If I get into difficulties, I'll make a sign with my eyes, and then you must shoot every arrow you have. Take care, whatever you do, tomorrow morning at the hour of the snake. I will make ready, and at the hour of the sheep, the battle will begin. Eat well, and then station yourself on top of these cliffs. Here is where he will start his ascent." He gave them thorough instructions and then returned to the interior of the island. The fishermen felled trees on a mountain peak and built a hut. They sharpened their arrows and tested their bowstrings. That evening they lit a fire, and talked and made ready, even as day broke. They ate their fill, and soon it was the hour of the snake. As they peered into the distance, they saw what a strong wind was blowing in the direction from which the enemy was to come. There was something strange and frightening about the surface of the sea. The water turned green and seemed to glow, and then out of the sea came 2 balls of fire. What could this be, they wondered. They turned their gaze towards the direction from which their host was to emerge to meet the enemy, and saw that the mountain too was taking on an uncanny and frightening appearance. The grass was swaying, leaves quaked. Amidst roars of abuse, 2 more balls of fire came forth. As the thing from the sea swam ever closer, they saw it was a centipede, 10 yards long. Its back glowed green, its sides glowed scarlet. Above them on the island they saw a snake, equally long, its body a full span around, descending towards the shore. Flicking its tongue, it came to confront the intruder. Who could say which of these creatures was the more fearsome? Exactly as the men had been told, the snake gave its enemy room to advance. Seeing it stop with an upraised head, the centipede took encouragement and ran up onto the land. For a time the contenders rested and waited, watching each other with angry eyes. The 7 men climbed up the cliffs as they had been instructed, and fitted arrows into their bows and waited, keeping a close watch on the snake. The centipede advanced upon it at a run and sank its teeth into it. Both creatures bit each other's hand and held fast, so that their raw flesh was covered with blood. The centipede, being a creature with many hands, held on tight, as it bit and usually had the upper hand. After 4 hours, the snake showed signs of weakening a little. It gave the fishermen a look. Hurry and shoot, it seemed to be thinking. The 7 approached and shot every arrow they had into the centipede's entire body from head to tail. The arrows struck so hard they were buried up in the notches. Next, the men used their swords to hack off the centipede's hands, so that it toppled onto the ground. The snake removed itself, whereupon with its renewed vigor, they hacked the centipede to death. The snake then went back into the interior of the island. After some time, the man who they had seen previously reappeared. He was limping and seemed to be suffering great pain. There were wounds still bleeding on its face and neck. Again he had food and drink brought out for the men, and he expressed unbounded joy. The men cut the centipede into little bits. They made a bonfire with trees cut from the mountain and burned them in it. The bones and ashes they cast far away. Then the man said to the fisherman, "It is thanks to you that I shall possess this island in peace. On this island there are many places that can be tilled as rice fields, and also dry fields in abundance, and countless fruit trees. It will yield rich sustenance in every way. I have it in mind to propose that you settle here. What would you say to that?" "We would like nothing better," said the fisherman. "But what about our wives and children?" "Well, go fetch them." "But how shall we bring them across the sea?" the fisherman asked. The man said, "When you cross to the mainland, I will make the winds blow from the island. As for your coming here, the shrine called Kumada no Miya in Kaga province is my subsidiary dwelling. When you want to come, worship at that shrine, and you will make the crossing easily." He gave them thorough instructions, put provisions for their journey in their boat, and sent them forth. A fresh breeze sprang up from the island, and in the briefest time imaginable, they had speeded across the sea. Each of the 7 men returned to his home. inviting all those who would go to that island to accompany them. They set out in secret. They outfitted 7 boats, filled them with all the different kinds of seeds they could require. They went first to the Kumada shrine and reported to the god. After they embarked, the wind sprang up, and all 7 boats crossed the sea and reached the island. Afterwards, the 7 made their homes on the island. They farmed and prospered, and their numbers increased. They are there even today. The name of the island is Cat Island. Once each year, the inhabitants cross the sea to Kaga province and worship at the Kumada shrine. The people of the province know about this and watch for them, but have never caught a glimpse of them. They come in the middle of the night when they are least expected, perform their ceremony and depart. It is only afterwards that others realize that it has taken place. The ceremony has been performed annually without interruption to the present day. The island in question can be seen distantly from a place called Omiya, in the district of Noto province. If you look far off on a clear day, you can just make out the western eminence blue in the distance. In the bygone era, in Noto province, there was a ship's captain named Tsumemitsu. He went to the island when he was blown out to sea. The inhabitants came out and would not allow him to land. They let him moor his boat for a time by the shore and gave him provisions. With 7 or 8 days a wind sprang up from the island, whereupon his boat raced swiftly back to Noto province. Afterwards he said, "Far off in the distance, row upon row of dwellings and streets like the lanes of the capital were faintly visible, and there was so much traffic to and fro. Very likely it was to prevent him from observing the island more closely that they would not let him land. In recent times, when Chinese sailors come from afar, they first call at the island to take on provisions and catch fish and abalone. From there they set out for the port of Tsuruga on the mainland. In like manner, these Chinese have forbidden to tell anyone that such an island exists. Now think! It must surely have been owing to karma from their previous lives that these 7 men settled on the island where their descendants are living even today. A happy island it is indeed, so the tale's been told, and so it's been handed down." And there's your tale for today.
You know, I kept expecting some sort of twist, and it just went along its way and ended in a happy fashion, and I was still waiting. I'm like, is something going to happen where they won't get to the island, or
Where's this horrible twist?
I was
Yeah.
wondering. So it was quite nice. Seems kind of too tame a word, but
Yeah, I know what you mean.
pleasant.
Yeah, definitely a pleasant story.
I mean, except for the centipede. The centipede didn't have a pleasant time, but
yeah, I picked this story, I'll be honest, at random.
Ooh.
From here. The title intrigued me.
Very much.
This is completely new for me. As I was reading it, I was starting to think of the centipede, Lake Biwa. And of course, sometimes people liken dragons and snakes. And of course, the centipede at Biwa attacked the Dragon King. This was a centipede attacking a snake. So there were some similarities in that regard. So I don't know if that one was based off the other, potentially. But I definitely liked the story. So, Cat Island. I was wondering if you were going to ask about it. I think you were.
Yeah.
I saw you writing things down.
Yeah, my little list of I have questions. Yes, is this the Cat Island?
So this Cat Island, Nekonoshima, at least in this tale, no longer exists. But commenters identified the island with Hegurajima. So it is off the, I would say, the west coast, but Japan is at an angle, so it's hard to do. So if you leave the coast from Niigata City, Niigata Prefecture, you get to the big island of Sadoshima. If you continue west for quite some time, there is a tiny island called Hegurajima. And that is what the story, at least they think that is the island from this story.
That would make sense, since they were also referencing, we had a reference from like Chinese traders coming in. So that was also, I didn't write that down, but I just remembered too, that was an experience we had of a different culture within the story.
That is true, yes. And then if you go south from the island, there is the old area of what was Noto province as well. So it is, the location is correct. It makes sense for it to be this island. Although it doesn't talk about there being cats on the island, unfortunately. So I don't know what happened to the cats. But also there was no cats in the story. So
Yes, why?
strange name to pick.
Snake Island made a little more sense.
Snake Island would be better, of course.
Kumano Shrine, is that a real shrine, or is it just the purpose of the story, or one that is lost to the mists of time?
So this shrine in Kumadamura, it is mentioned in other texts, one of them being the Engi Shiki. It does state that it was moved in the 17th century on account of floods, but it does seem to no longer exist as well again. It's been lost to time, but it did exist. Of course, the man identifying himself as a god, therefore is going to be a Shinto kami of some sort. But I don't know of any Shinto kami that are snakes.
No.
There is, of course, Yamata no Orochi, which is kind of a dragon / a snake, but that was kind of an evil animal that was killed by Susanoo. Most of the other deities are human in appearance. Interesting to look into if there are potentially snake kami somewhere. Because there are many kami, so it might be a very local one, or it might be like a very local legend that I haven't come across yet, or that we don't know about. Interesting. I want to look into that.
Well, it's funny also you should mention snake, because this is the year of the snake in the zodiac.
Oh, it is. This is a completely unintentional. Well done, me.
Yes, well done.
Well done, me.
When was this story originally written?
The Konjaku Monogatari is a collection of stories. It is actually a collection of over 1,000 tales. So this will keep us going for a while. And it includes tales from Japan, tales from China, and also tales from India.
Oh.
And we don't know exactly when it was compiled. However, around 1120 is an about approximation for a compilation date.
So it was presumably compilated around that time, so it could be potentially written before, but around the time it was actually gathered. Oh, one more. The Hour of the Snake and Sheep. I know we've talked briefly a long time ago about time, but how the time was actually referenced in Japan. It wasn't, I believe it wasn't hourly. I think it was different span of time.
Different spans of time in 2-hour segments. So the first one, what was it? The first one was the Hour of the Snake. The Hour of the Snake was 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. by Western standards. And the Hour of the Sheep, which immediately came afterwards, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Also, I'm guessing since it's snake and sheep that the hours corresponded to the zodiac.
Yes, they did.
And again, snake was the first hour in the story.
Snake was the first hour. Very fitting.
Well, I'm glad you randomly chanced upon this one. I think you were trying to say that at the beginning, but I had to ask how you were. I forgot.
Yes, I think I was about to say it, and then asked me. But you asked now, so now we know. Yay. It was a random choice from 1,000 possible stories.
Oh,
I mean, no, the book I have does not have all 1,000. That would be very interesting to read if I could find one of those, but I think it would be a very expensive book.
Very heavy?
Yes, I'm very, very heavy.
Several volumes, perhaps?
No doubt. I think the book I have only has about 30 or 40 of them. Some are much shorter than that, some are a bit longer. But yes, I think as well, these books, even if they do have stories about other countries, I think it would be interesting to read them at some point in the context of, this is a show about Japanese history, but these stories were written and compiled by Japanese authors. So it would be interesting to read them and kind of see, is it quite different to what the actual histories were of China or India, perhaps? Are things exaggerated, or are things corrupted from the originals because it's more hearsay stories, where, of course, the Japanese stories, it's a bit more based in fact. I say that after we've had a story about a centipede, but you kind of know what I mean. It's more local, so there's a bit more truth, perhaps.
I mean, there's so many different angles we can go into with that, but I do like the idea of touching onto the stories from different countries as well. I want to do that.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much, Thomas. I really enjoyed that, and looking forward to some more random stories in the future.
Yes, I am too. So thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We will see what we will be doing. I think we need to do something special for episode 100.
I think so too. Oh my goodness.
We'll have to have a quick think when we wrap up this recording, or maybe tomorrow at some point. We will figure something out. Episode 100, it needs to be something interesting, something different potentially. But we'll definitely figure something out for you guys. So yes, thank you all for tuning in so much today, and we do appreciate it. Thank you for your patience with myself being sick. Hopefully, Heather, you won't feel under the weather for too much longer yourself. But yes, projects and things that Heather and I are working on, as well as things that I'm working on more by myself. So, of course, we have our podcast. If you wish to join, we do have a YouTube channel now. We will be starting to upload shorts on there soon to talk about more Japanese history in addition to these episodes. So on YouTube, it's Japan Archives, which you can subscribe to. And if you're also interested in other things such as gaming content, I do have a gaming channel. You can find that at Mycenria on YouTube, MyCenria. And I've also, like I said, I've been a bit sick, Heather. I've got back into all my writings and my stories. So there is a lot of updates coming very soon about that. We're going to try and launch a podcast, which is an original story based on my fantasy universe I've been working on for a while. So if that interests you, please tune into that when it's out. And we also do have a Discord, which I will link in the description of this episode. On there, we are updating all our different projects. So we update about our Japanese stuff, our gaming content, and all of the fantasy stuff. So if you want to join and hang out and talk about history or some other things, then we would love to have you. But that is my spiel. I'm sure next time I can make that a bit more concise and to the point, but for a first time, I think that will do.
Beautiful.
So
Very beautiful.
that is everything for me today, Heather. How about you?
I think for me as well.
Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in today as usual, and we will see you all for episode 100.
Yay.
It's been so long. It's been so long in the making. So yes, thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you later. Bye for now.
皆さん気をつけて、またね。